A tornado threat ongoing across the south. Look at what a possible tornado did in the last few hours in parts of Alabama. And this was from Russellville. A roof blown off a building. Power lines knocked down. This is Limestone County. A possible tornado ripped roofs off homes, destroyed buildings, and brought down power lines. And that tornado threat is now pushing into Georgia. I'm meteorologist Maria LaRosa.
And I'm meteorologist Julie Martin. You know, we have a tornado warning, including a watch, I should say, including places like Atlanta. So we want to get over to Dr. Greg Forbes for the very latest now on that severe weather threat.
Thanks, Julie. And indeed, we do have a tornado watch that goes till 4 a.m., includes the Atlanta metro area. We've had tornadoes, we've had hail to baseball or even a little bit larger. And still have storms in Alabama with a tornado watch that goes until 11 p.m., 3-inch hail, and a newer watch that goes until 4 a.m. that includes northwest and then parts of central Georgia until 4 a.m., 2-inch hail, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts, a threat there. And we do have severe thunderstorms with tornado warnings on them, moving close to this warm front in the warm air between the cold and the warm fronts toward the Atlanta metro area with tornado warnings. This storm now that came all the way across Alabama gave tornadoes in the Russellville and that you saw some of the debris flying around. That now is up near the Cedartown, Georgia area, Floyd and Polk counties with a tornado warning. It is probably mostly a gust front with damaging winds, but sometimes you get tornadoes on the leading edge of that. And if so, places like Aragon and the Rockmart area, some of the other areas that you see there in white would be where we would have that. Here's the strong gust front winds, the rain-cooled and hail-cooled winds. There's the inflow to this big spiraling complex. So sometimes you can get tornadoes along that gust front, as we call it, that interface. Then the next storm down had a tornado near the Jacksonville, Alabama area. It's coming now into Cleburne County, out of Calhoun County, into Cleburne County, and then will work its way into the Haralson County area of Georgia with a chance of a tornado. Let's take a look at the tracking of this one. There it is coming toward places like Stedman, 1017, Haralson High School. That will be in Georgia at about 1023. These storms mostly going slightly south of eastward at about 40 miles per hour. Well-defined rotation signature on this one in the area north of Fruithurst, and then you can see it's going to move into Georgia off to the north and west of the Tallapoosa area. Then behind that, tornado warning near the Ragland, Alabama area, St. Clair County with a tornado warning. That's getting close to the Ahatchee area over toward Lydens Mills and Alexandria, Alabama. It ultimately will work its way toward the Georgia area. Not extremely tight rotation. I think it's doing a little bit of organizing at this point. Back behind that, another line of thunderstorms weakening a little bit, coming in with still several storms hit Cullman County with flash flood warnings there. That warm front that I was talking about, you can see it, I think, pretty well showing up here. East winds versus southerly winds, 70s versus 60s. So as far north as that warm front goes, that will be where the storms will go. The main big cluster you can see here is on the south flanks of that big spinning cold upper low, and it's getting strong winds aloft, adding to the shear for these storms. So before long, we'll be getting out of Alabama, except east central, but much of the state of Georgia, especially the northern half, and then probably later tonight, maybe as far north and east as the Myrtle Beach area with a severe thunderstorm threat. Torcon values now probably 5 and less for most of these areas, but that's still very high. Our future radar shows that that main cluster that we have right now will continue across northern Georgia, be out of Alabama, but continuing through the Atlanta area from the midnight through the 2 a.m. time frame, and then maybe still severe coming across all the way across central and into northeast parts of South Carolina by sunrise tomorrow morning. So a lot of people are going to have noisy nights. Some people, unfortunately, a wind, hail, heavy rain, and even a tornado yet to come tonight. Maria?
All right, Dr. Forbes, thank you so much. We're still watching areas of Tennessee for strong thunderstorms. Our Reynolds Wolf is in Chattanooga. Reynolds, what are you seeing right now?
I got to tell you right now, probably some of the steadier rainfall that we've had. But, I mean, if you take a look at radar, you're going to tell it's not going to last that long. I mean, this thing has been like a giant wave coming up towards the rocky shore. It's kind of crashed and now just kind of falling apart for the time being. But steady downpour. We did some lightning a short while ago, a little peal of thunder every now and again. Skies, which have been cloudy all evening, finally bearing the showers. But we do expect, as we mentioned, a short time for this to last, maybe another 10, 15 minutes before it drives off and then off into history. But we are going to see this continue its march towards the east, eventually interact with higher elevation. But right now, from our present position to Lookout Mountain to Missionary Ridge and down along the banks of the Tennessee River, it's a rain story for the time being, but certainly rougher weather well to our south. And if you do look at radar, that really is the active spot where it happens to be. But still, ponding on the roadway is going to be a bit of an inconvenience for people there this evening, no doubt. But it is going to be in Georgia where we see that line really, really intense. And folks, let me tell you, don't wait for those tornado warnings to pop up in your community and then try to have a plan or an idea of what to do. Make that plan right now so you and your family and friends can get to the right spot. I will tell you, they have certainly taken some steps here. Earlier this evening, we had patio furniture all over here, but knowing the winds were going to...
All right, and we do want to get out to those active tornado warnings right now. A couple of those popping up now in Georgia as well as back in Alabama.
And we have this one now for Haralson County in Georgia, also Floyd and Polk County. Cedartown is in the area, Rockmart as well. This is out until 10:30 Eastern time. If you are in these areas, you want to make sure that you are seeking shelter, put as many walls between you and the outdoor. If you have no basement, the next best option would be an interior room, hallway, or a bathroom.
That's right, and we do have that tornado watch as well for the Atlanta metro area, expecting all of these storms to push eastward as we head throughout the evening and into the overnight, unfortunately, when a lot of people are going to bed. And so you do want to have a way to get your warnings. We'll time out this one for you. It looks like 10:20 arrival there in Senni, 10:28 in Aragon and Stylesboro for you, 10:40. If you live in this area, you do want to take shelter now.
And outside of any immediate tornado threat, there is a widespread wind damage threat as well, with these thunderstorms pushing off to the east. And they're moving off to the east anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour.
Dangerous storms are rolling across northeast Alabama toward parts of northwest Georgia, some of them with recent tornadoes in those. A cluster of storms here, 3 of them at least, that have tornado warnings close to this red warm front. And then a little bit to the west of that, off to the north and east of Birmingham. So let's take a look. Most of these storms are heading just slightly to the south of east at about 40 miles per hour. This one is in Georgia now. It has come all the way across Alabama, gave some damage in the Russellville area, and now it seems to be maybe mostly a windstorm, but sometimes you get tornadoes on the leading edge of that. Floyd and Polk County, south of Rome, up around and now east of the Cedartown area, you have that severe threat. You can see here, I think, the arch that seems like it's strong winds that are gusting out. But sometimes on the leading edge of that, places like Dallas, Georgia, for example, at about 10:31, you could get the possibility of a tornado. There it is. All of these reds are a storm relative, at least inflows. These greens are storm relative, rain cooled and hail cooled outflows heading toward the Rockmart area. But places like Rockmart to southwest of Taylorsville to the Yorkville, Georgia area, not out of the question you could get damaging wind gusts or even a tornado. Then back just getting close to the Georgia line now, Cleburne County in Alabama, and then heading toward Haralson County in Georgia. Look at the hook that shows up on this one. This was back around Jacksonville, had very well-defined tornado debris signature then. It's lost some of that, but still very well-defined velocity signature here, and that's heading over toward Haralson High School, the Buchanan, Georgia, the West Bremen, Georgia area, and then ultimately toward the Villa Rica area of Georgia. Look at that one. There's the westbound inflow. There's some of the leading eastbound storms, and the tornado vortex signature showing up there north of Fruithurst, and that should come over into the areas just to the north and west of Tallapoosa, Georgia. And one more storm behind that, just to the north of Anniston, Alabama, Calhoun County, around the Sachs area, heading toward Cleburne, the community of Cleburne, and then Heflin with a pretty well-defined circulation, a tight one there, heading off toward the Highway 1, where it makes the big bend there just to the north of Anniston, Alabama. So, Julie, still very dangerous storms, and it looks like they'll continue in the wee hours of the morning, probably all the way across Georgia, maybe even into South Carolina.
Wow, such a dangerous time. All right, Dr. Forbes, thank you for keeping us up to date. And take a look at this. Hail pounding down at a gas station in the northeast corner of Mississippi. tennis ball sized hail reported across northern Mississippi this afternoon, and we have had some very big hail being reported all along this line of storms throughout the evening as well, and that threat will continue. Tomorrow, our severe weather threat also continues. Here are some of the ingredients we look at. We call it SLIM, so shear, that's at the medium level. Lift in the atmosphere, that's high. Medium instability and high moisture content as well. So those ingredients are still holding together, but all of this is going to be pushing off now toward the east. So as our front continues on, now we're looking at places like Florida, South Carolina, and the Georgia coast in line for potentially some of this severe weather. Our lift increasing with a lot of this warm, moist air. Again, the instability is there, that upper wind support as well. So here's our red zone. All the way from Charleston, maybe Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, back down into Savannah, Orlando, all the way over to Tampa. You're looking at the potential for some pretty strong storms, maybe even isolated tornadoes tomorrow. So we get through tonight, and then our focus will switch here to northern Florida. A 4 on the Torcon scale for you, about a 40% chance of a tornado, and a 3 here in central Florida, so about a 30% chance. So not quite as high as this evening, nonetheless, still existing even for the southeast coast of South Carolina, about a 3 on our Torcon scale. So we'll continue to follow those developments for you, but certainly another dangerous day tomorrow, and we are very concerned about the overnight tonight. We're going to keep you out ahead of these storms. Stay with us right here on the Weather Channel.
Breaking right now, tornadoes reported across Alabama, including this one in Moulton. In other parts of the state, we've seen damage to homes and businesses. We have an ongoing tornado threat now pushing into Georgia, including warned storms. So we want to get right to it, show you the radar. And outside of a tornado, these are packing a punch with large hail and damaging winds. So take these storms very seriously. So you can see now between Birmingham, Atlanta, and just to the north there of that I-20 corridor is where we're seeing the most active weather right now. A lot of lightning, and these are pushing to the east anywhere from almost 20, 30 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour. So we're going to take a zoomed in look at this one storm in here. This is Haralson County. Dangerous storm right now, so heads up in the Tallapoosa and Bremen area as well. This out until 10:45 Eastern time. And along with the potential circulation that you see here, this is looking at the velocity. So when you see the green and the red tight together, that's an indication of some rotation there. This is very close to Tallapoosa right now. So if you are in these areas, please seek shelter immediately. That means putting as many walls between you and the outside. Head to the basement. If you don't have a basement, the next best thing is going to be an interior room, a hallway, a closet, a bathroom. Dangerous storms pushing to the east, this one moving about 40 miles per hour. So Bremen near you at 10:32, Temple in your area at 10:41, Buchanan by you at 10:27. So just a few more minutes here. Also, this warned storm for Cleburne County out until 9:45 Central Time. This is all along that line that's been really, really active, dangerous line of storms since later this afternoon. What you don't see with this one is not quite the same tight rotation. However, with that said, damaging winds absolutely possible in a dangerous storm. So if you're in the Fruithurst area, you want to make sure you too are away from windows. Tracking this one, unfortunately, Tallapoosa, this part of the segment could be near you at 10:33. Also watching, of course, the tornado warned storm part for you near Waco at 10:43. Again, for now, this is all right along and to the north of I-20. There's this tornado warning for Calhoun County out until 9:45 Central Time, includes Sacs and Weaver. A lot of heavy rain, a lot of lightning, and a possibility of some hail as well. And again, this one for Calhoun County, this portion of it until 9:30 Central Time. This is all within a tornado watch. This watch is beginning to get chopped away as these storms push off to the south. So some good news in areas that were already hard hit. We do have that other tornado watch that includes the Atlanta metro area to the north of Macon, Noonan as well, into Eatonton. This is out until 4 a.m. So again, several more hours, Julie, and these storms are still very, very potent.
And Maria, taking a closer look at those watches, we have what's being called a particularly dangerous situation here in Alabama until 11 o'clock. And definitely right along that line is where we're now seeing those storms really fire up, crossing into Georgia. But this particular issued warning isn't really all that common, and unfortunately the timing couldn't be worse because nighttime tornadoes often are the more deadly tornadoes. They do catch people off guard, long-lived, intense, but quite uncommon. About 3% of tornado watches actually fall into this category. So that is what we're dealing with in Alabama. We do not have the PDS right now in Georgia, but we take a look at the nighttime tornadoes stretching all the way back from 1950 to 2010, and you will notice about a third, anywhere from 30% to 40% of those in general stretching across the Mid-South and the South. So unfortunately, Dixie Alley, as we call it, or the Mid-South, is the space rather where we're about 2.5 times more likely to see these kill than the daytime tornadoes, and people are likely to be sleeping, of course, unaware of the warnings going on. So please have a way to get that warning on your phone before you go to bed tonight, or get out that weather radio. Just be alert and have a safe place to get to if need be. We'll keep you posted with more right after this. Wow, a tornado threat ongoing across the South. Just look here at what a possible tornado did in the last few hours in parts of Alabama. This was from Russellville, a roof blown off a building, power lines knocked down, and look at that debris just flying in the air. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm meteorologist Julie Martin.
And I'm meteorologist Maria LaRosa. These storms are producing tornadoes, damaging hail, and very powerful winds. So we want to get right to the radar, what the latest is, and Dr. Greg Forbes is here with us in the lab.
Thanks, Maria. And that storm that hit Russellville, Alabama, now is heading toward Marietta, Georgia. Just switched from a tornado warning to a severe thunderstorm warning for that. But a little bit farther to the south, we have a tornado warning for areas around the Villa Rica area. I'll get to that momentarily. Still, additional tornadoes are possible, including the Birmingham area. That's a tornado watch until 11 Central Time, and then over into northwest and central Georgia, including the Atlanta area, till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. 2-inch hail, 70-mile-per-hour gusts, and a chance of a tornado for the Atlanta metro area. A lot of this action is going to be focused now along and just to the west of this warm front, as storms are kind of running southeast almost along that. And when they do that, sometimes they get a little bit of extra rotation from the shifting winds along that front. And so that's kind of what this first storm is doing. This is the storm that earlier, when it was into Alabama, hit Russellville. It's kind of gusted out now, but this whole cluster of storms here is moving toward the Atlanta metro area at about 40 miles per hour toward the southeast. So at the pace that it's going, downtown Atlanta would be 11:15, Marietta 10:53, Conyers then 11:52, Tucker 11:24. The speed could slow down a little bit or accelerate. But some good news here. We just have switched from a tornado warning to severe thunderstorm warning for this northern part of that line of storms. It's coming into the Dallas area and then ultimately coming toward Marietta. Severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Cobb, Paulding, and Polk counties as damaging winds blast in. Take a look here. Well, I'll time this little segment out and update it for the speed. The strongest winds seem to be coming right about like that. So that would take it toward Dallas, Lost Mountain, the Mackinac area with the strongest of the winds, and ultimately may come into the Marietta area. Here's the gust front of that. There's the surging winds in green. These are the storm relative inflow about this big spiraling high precipitation supercell. So Dallas, ultimately Marietta, and maybe the Mableton area out ahead of that. This storm is still rotating. This one gave considerable damage in Jacksonville, Alabama. It's into Georgia, Haralson County now with a circulation that's heading toward the Bremen area. So West Bremen over toward the Villa Rica area, approximately Villa Rica about 10:52 at the rate it's going. It too may be gusting out a little bit. But right in here, there's a tiny little tornado vortex signature, and then this broader gusting out feature. So Bremen over to the Temple area could be a tornado coming there. This is a situation that has had a history of producing damage. Then farther back in Alabama, the Anniston area over toward the Heflin area, Calhoun and Cleburne counties with severe thunderstorm warning. Here's that warm front in terms of the temperatures and winds. You can see southerly winds in 70s versus east-southeast winds in the mid-60s And so a little bit of a shifting wind across that and converging winds sometimes will boost up the storms that could run down across Alabama and into central Georgia. In the satellite picture, you see the big high anvil blowing off all across the state of Georgia from these, and you also see the spinning upper lobe, and on its south flanks, the jet stream winds that are helping give the wind shear for these storms. Severe thunderstorms may push all the way across, maybe even into south, and maybe even to the Myrtle Beach area overnight tonight. I think if you get into the southern half of this, the coverage is going to be pretty low in terms of the severe threat, and tornado condition index values now are 5 or less across this area. Here's our future radar showing mainly what we're going to get is this cluster that I've been talking about moving into Atlanta. It may linger past midnight in that area, roll into upstate South Carolina, maybe into central South Carolina. Whether it's severe or not will depend on how far north that warm front gets, and then towards sunrise up into the Myrtle Beach and areas of the Charleston area. So, Julie, it's going to be a dangerous night still in some places. Maria?
Absolutely. So we want to talk about some of those threats as obviously they're changing. They will be changing over the next couple of hours. But the big picture reveals that, yes, there's definitely that wind damage threat here and that hail, too, which we have seen already 3-4 inch diameter hail when these storms were back in through northwestern Alabama. So as these storms push off to the east and the south, you're going to start to see less of a threat in some of these areas, which is great news. But just a heads up still from, say, Atlanta over towards Macon and, as Dr. Forbes was talking about, upstate South Carolina. Some of these reports are incredible. 2.8 inch diameter hail. That's baseball size hail in northwestern Alabama. Earlier today, you had golf ball size hail in Neal near Flint City. And to get an idea of the power, I think you can sort of sense if you had a piece of ice, basically like a rock the size of a baseball, that would hurt. But it would be like dropping a 2-liter bottle to the ground. That's the power of it. 3-inch hail. Now you're talking about a professional golfer's drive. Incredibly powerful. And 4-inch diameter hail like being hit with a fastball. 170 mile per hour fastball. So with the damaging wind threat, again, going to see that diminish to the north and west where we're seeing the line. That makes sense, but still that potential as those showers and thunderstorms push off to the south and east. Beginning to get some more storm reports in, kind of confirming what we expect to see when you have the radar like we were looking at earlier today. So possible tornado with tree damage reported near Leicester. Again, there was a pretty significant thunderstorm that was riding that Alabama-Tennessee line earlier today. So we'll continue to get these storm reports in and know that, too, with that threat overnight, you still need to remain vigilant, especially as we get towards the early morning hours, Julie. Always a difficult time when you're trying to alert people of damaging storms moving in.
Absolutely, Maria. And the Atlanta metro area under a tornado watch until 4 a.m. We went in timeout as it's starting to arrive in the northwestern suburbs here. This is 11:30 this evening here in Cobb County. Marietta stretching back up 75 as well. So all of this, right, the strongest part of the storm right now north of I-20, but all of this moving in and likely coming through the Atlanta area right around the midnight hour and continuing to push eastward there out I-85 and up Georgia 400. So we are going to be looking at, again, some of that possible wind damage, some hail, and we'll have to watch out for the isolated tornadoes with this as well. 145, we could still see some pieces of this still coming through the Atlanta metro area. Some of that now getting south of I-20 into Douglasville and down 75 as well. So we'll see all of this push eastward into South Carolina as we get into the later night hours. But for now, focusing in on the next couple of hours, looks like Atlanta is in line for some rough weather. Maria?
And earlier today, it was parts of Tennessee, and our own Reynolds Wolf is in Chattanooga. And Reynolds, a lot of the storminess is to your south, but I can imagine looking south, it's quite a light show.
It has been every now and then. You'll see a bit of lightning here or there, every now and then a reverberation of thunder, but it is really way off. The story that we have here is one of really the fading rain showers all going off towards the east. Right now, we've got a few gray skies here or there. Every now and then, you'll actually see some stars popping up through the cloud deck. We did have the rain that picked up a bit, so did the wind briefly, and then it just blasted right on through. Also, earlier, we had quite a few deck chairs out here, some chaise lounges and whatnot. They brought them inside just for fear that the winds may be kind of strong. strong, but I'll tell you, it just kind of fell apart. To our west and to our northwest, we briefly had a couple of tornado warnings that did pop up, but they didn't last that long. And I'll tell you right now, people certainly breathing a sigh of relief. The volunteer state was ready for this. They truly were. In fact, they did make a few changes in the school schedules in places like Nashville and certainly here in Chattanooga. All afternoon classes, all afternoon activities were canceled in lieu of the inclement weather. But thankfully now, the lesson that we've learned is that this did go through, and we're very fortunate. But it is that time of the year. It is that season. We have the transition going from winter to spring where sometimes things like this tend to be commonplace. So good rehearsal, so to speak, for the folks here for what may be coming over the next several weeks and months. But still, the story is going to be down towards Atlanta. You've got an intense line of storms that's rolling in that area. Again, the tornado watch, they'll be in effect till 4 o'clock this morning. Find a safe place to be so you and your friends and family can stay safe. You're watching the Weather Channel. Continued coverage on this outbreak continues right after this.
Reports of significant damage across Alabama tonight, and we're continuing to follow those threats. Homes and businesses destroyed, power lines and trees reportedly down.
And we want to get an update for you now. Jeff Smitherman with the Alabama Emergency Management Agency is on the phone with us right now. Jeff, thank you so much for taking time with us. We're hearing reports of considerable damage on the campus of Jacksonville State University. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, we're getting those initial reports in now. We have our fire, EMS, rescue, law enforcement, and other emergency management officials on location there. Of course, the first priority is search and rescue efforts, and they'll continue to do that mission. Then they'll provide us a more detailed report as they move along on that. But, yeah, we are getting reports of significant damage in the Jacksonville State University area. As well as across statewide from that began earlier today in the northwestern counties in the state and progressed along throughout, and now it's most of it's focused on the east central part of the state.
Jeff, back to Jacksonville State, are you also getting reports of injuries there?
We don't have any reports yet. I suspect those generally follow along with the damage reports. So as we get those in, we'll track those and report those as well. But we don't have those into us yet.
And have you heard of any other areas that have been hard hit as well?
Any of those counties that have been placed under a tornado warning from the northwest corner all the way down to east central have different varying levels of damage. But what we're seeing is widespread damage from probably the most significant size hail I've encountered here in the state of Alabama. So it's, trees down, power lines down, hail damage, punching holes through roofs. So it's a pretty significant event across the state.
And Jeff, talk about as people wake up tomorrow and venture out, what your message is to them, because the danger obviously could still be there, not so much the storm, but what it's done, right?
Yes, it's continuing to have the people report in, stay in touch with, if they feel like they need assistance, call the local first responders, call 911, get the assistance they need, keep up with what your local forecasters are saying. We envision, while it being a fast-moving but yet slow-developing situation across the state, as soon as things cleared out, we're a few hours away yet from the major impacts exiting the state. So, they need to continue to monitor what's going on in their area, and for the next few hours, certainly.
And the next few hours, obviously, an added challenge in that, we're going to be approaching midnight, the dark hours. What kind of challenges does that mean for you?
Well, of course, what will happen is the law enforcement, fire, EMS will focus their efforts on identifying and accounting for all personnel in any of the residences or housing that was impacted by storm's impacts. So the focus will be safety, well-being, and accountability of people. And then we'll take account of the damages and what it did to the structures. Tomorrow in daylight hours, we'll give a better view. So tonight's focus will be on life safety and accountability of personnel.
All right, Jeff Smitherman with Alabama. We thank you so much for your time this evening. Very difficult situation there. They've got their work cut out for them. It's dark. They're just getting out and really trying to assess the lay of the land, but the damage is widespread.
Well, I think that was the takeaway there. And those thunderstorms stretched across from northwest Alabama now into eastern Alabama and Georgia. And the damage along that line continues. Again, hearing reports of considerable damage in places like Jacksonville State. We'll be right back with another update. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of severe weather and tracking right now. Storms moving into the Atlanta metro area. The same batch of storms earlier today tracked across Alabama with large hail, damaging winds, and even reported tornadoes. But right now you can see they're all severe thunderstorm warned. And I don't want to say that this is okay, we can ease up at all, because there's still damaging wind threat for sure with these storms. And it has taken over the I-20 corridor out of Atlanta. So a very bad time to be on I-20 right now as these storms push off to the south and east. So this one out for Cobb County. This is, again, moving off to the south and east. So Vining's near you in just a few more minutes. Atlanta as well. There at the airport may miss just to the, at least this part of the storm, just to the north of the airport. Tucker at 11:24 Eastern time. Biggest threat going to be those damaging winds that could be 60, 70 miles per hour, and possibility of some hail and torrential rainfall, which again, as this storm, part of it takes over I-20. Carroll, Douglas, and Haralson counties, this is in effect for you until 11:15 Eastern time, pushing off to the east. This again, keeping that threat over that I-20 corridor for a little bit longer. Carroll, Douglas, and Fulton County, this part of the storm warned for you out until 11:45 Eastern time. That does include East Point and Forest Park. Things are pretty quiet right now, but my guess is that you're probably seeing those flashes in the sky and maybe hearing some rumbles of thunder. So you have a little bit longer before this gets you, but not much. You can see Fairburn, this part will be near you at 11:21. So even with a severe thunderstorm warning, you want to make sure that you're staying away from the windows. Into your room is not a bad idea with these either, because of that wind damage threat. Easily could take down trees and power lines. You just want to make sure you have as many walls between you and the outside. This is now a severe thunderstorm warning for Cleburne County, this in Alabama, till 10:30 Central Time. Edwardsville, Fruithurst, you're in that warned area as well. You see deep purple, so we could be looking at some hail and torrential rainfall, again, taking over that portion of I-20, which is now a very long stretch of some very stormy weather and that heavy, heavy rain. Calhoun County, St. Clair, and Talladega counties in Alabama, severe thunderstorm warning for you out until 10:45 at Central Time. It's a pretty long warned area, but you can see it's sort of drifting east and southeast. So in these areas like Anniston, just sit tight. You have to wait, of course, till that back edge comes by your area. So it may be just a little bit longer, perhaps another half hour to 45 minutes. The bigger picture shows, too, that I've seen on social media a lot of videos of quiet, dry conditions with the sky lighting up. This is why. Look at all of the lightning strikes. And just in this little boxed area, 820 lightning strikes just in the last 15 minutes. What was interesting, too, is some of these are pretty far out ahead of that main core of the storm system. So some damaging lightning likely, too, and keeping a lot of people up right now. And that includes all the way back to those storms that are warned near Talladega and Anniston. So the storms that are there right now, they're in that tornado watch area. As you can see, though, over the last hour or so, a lot of that has been allowed to sort of discontinue because that threat is obviously a lot less. But this portion of the watch is in effect until 4 a.m. The good news, again, that tornado risk may be a little bit lower than it was even just a couple of hours ago, Julie. But severe weather still possible through central Georgia as we get through the next couple of hours.
All right, Maria, thank you. We want to take a look now at Washington, D.C., and believe it or not, we have the makings of another winter storm coming your way by midweek, and we could see some of your highest snow totals of the season here in the D.C.-Baltimore area. So we want to talk about our winter storm Toby for you really quick. Although we are following that severe weather, we're also watching this setup. Here we go again, a potential nor'easter once again coming into, at this point, the mid-Atlantic, and then coming up the coast as we get into midweek. So we'll see our system that's producing that severe weather pull out. And then this is a look at Tuesday evening, starting to see some of that snow falling in portions of Virginia, West Virginia, up into the D.C.-Baltimore area, maybe with some mixing there, and then continuing to push on. And as I mentioned, we could see several inches. D.C., you're down many inches, about 12 inches or so for the year. So this could actually be your biggest event of the season, and we will officially be out of winter at that point. So looking at Wednesday, 1 a.m., all of this continuing to fall across West Virginia, up into Delaware, D.C., maybe into New Jersey as well as Philly, and then continuing on up the coast. So looking at, once again, another huge weather maker here from the mid-Atlantic, stretching up through Philadelphia, stretching up to New York, possibly even Boston by the time we get into the latter part of the week. So our snowfall total forecast, yeah, very impressive here. Where we see the lavender here, that's 5 to 8 inches of snow. Heavy, wet snow. Mind you, it is March, so this is going to be that stuff that's very difficult to shovel, and it's really going to be piling up for you. And some of the higher elevations, we could see as much as a foot of snow by the time we do hit Thursday. So again, another big weather maker setting up for the mid-Atlantic and the East Coast in terms of winter weather, not letting up just yet. We'll be back.